Welcome back to Appalachian Dim Sum, episode 4, fourth course.
Yes. Yeah, are we calling this the coffee service?
The coffee service. We got some coffee.
It's going to be the kind of the tail end of the desserts. We didn't get into our desserts because we kind of wanted to get into, we had a bunch of trailers to watch in the last one, so going to get into these. Try not to rattle the paper here too much, but
Love the color.
we get our snacks. Oh wow, it is
The green tea. Mm-hmm.
This is the green tea.
Yep.
Kit Kats. I was kind of thinking it might be the cookie on the inside was green tea, but it's the coating.
It's the coating. It's good. I don't know how anybody could not like this.
The one thing, we were in Japan and they had these like things in the parks you're walking through where they had like little tea huts and shacks or whatever, where you could go and do the traditional tea service.
Mm-hmm.
Like you always think of the second Karate Kid movie where she's with him and they do like the little rotating the bowl and all
Yeah.
that. Always wanted to do that, and we never did that because the kids were younger, and then we knew they wouldn't drink it, so it was. But that's one of those flavors that apparently I'm the only one in my family that likes. I love green tea. That's really good.
It's very good. when you taste things like this, I always wonder, like, why don't they bring it to America?
It's really the only thing you ever see is anybody that sells like the little Pocky. They have the green tea Pocky sticks, but those things are just, I don't know. They're okay. There's so much better snacks.
It's just a breadstick with a little bit of chocolate on it.
It's just not even a good bread. It's just a stick with some
Just stick with some
chocolate.
little coating.
You want to?
Yeah, they do in a pinch.
This is the blueberry raspberry.
I expected it. Oh, okay. They're
It's actually two colors
half
on it.
pink, half purple.
So do you do all of it, or do you do a side?
My tastes are so undiscerning, it's going to taste the same to me either way. So
I got a big mouth, so I'm just
put the whole thing in.
I'm going. That's very weird.
I taste the berry a lot more. A lot more. The raspberry.
I don't think I had a flavor in mind for what that would taste like. I don't even know what to say about that. That's weird.
A little citrusy. So our coffee service today is, we're talking about comic and anime adaptations in film and TV. So essentially, my thesis for this is I find it interesting how in the East, manga gets a pretty direct one-to-one adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, if you read the manga and you watch the anime, you're going to see the same story. That doesn't really happen in the West. There are some, but there's not a lot of direct adaptations. If you're going to watch a Superman cartoon, it's going to be a new story. Maybe loosely touching on some older tropes or some older themes in some older plots, but it's not going to be one-to-one.
That kind of, I don't know if that's where you were thinking on this, but it kind of brings me back to a thought I had about like superhero stuff, as I see people already trying to fight over the new Superman movie and stuff about that, and I don't care. But and I'm probably kind of in that thought process because I'm still reading that 70s Godzilla stuff and just keep thinking how amazing that would be if they just brought it to film just as is. And maybe it's my version of the fix to the superhero stuff where people just kind of got worn out on it, is go back and make the stuff in the time frame that the comics were in whatever, if it was World War II or if it was pre-war, or if it was 60s or whatever time frame that comic happened in, shoot the movie in that time frame. Are they kind of doing that with that Fantastic
Four? Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe that's far out.
It's set in the 60s, but I mean, it has the Silver Surfer's like wife as being the Silver Surfer. So I mean, it's
It's like that just can't not mess with anything.
Right.
I don't.
They had to do something. They had to change it a little bit.
But it seems to me like that would be the fix if you wanted to kind of renew interest in them, because the most successful ones have been. I know Wonder Woman did really well. It was basically taking place during World War One.
Yeah, we need more. We need more period superhero films.
The Captain America, the first one of those, where he's going out with the with Dum Dum and those guys.
The Commandos.
Yeah. It's like what would be the problem in just letting all of those properties just exist in that world and stop trying to bring them here and then change them into something? Because isn't like the thing going on with Superman that people are arguing over a thing where he's going to get shamed online?
That's all rumor and speculation. Yeah, it's apparently like
I'm just like
the conflict in the upcoming Superman film is going to be he's getting like online harassed, or people are having like a hashtag like Superman sucks.
Somebody wants to go see cyberbullying worked into Superman. I want to see Superman like catching a building that's falling down or a bridge that's collapsing like the old stuff. And it's like, just if you want to keep making these properties, then give me. I mean, you have all the little social commentary that you need built into the X-Men. Give me the 60s and 70s X-Men comics.
Because I really
those worlds,
I think that might be. That might be an answer of why we're seeing that. That's why in the East they're just like, hey, this is a popular manga. Let's put that in anime form, and the people who like the manga would like to see it animated.
Oh yeah.
And they respect the material because they respect it as an art, and they respect the audience.
There's some people that like to read, and some people like to watch stuff, and there's some people that like to kind of dive through both of them.
And here in the West, I think, and it kind of goes along with our culture. We're very individualized. We're very much about personal productivity and personal success. So if you take someone else's work and adapt it, and you adapt it faithfully, that's not your work. I think people, and like I said, I think it's a Western mindset. They want to have their mark on it. They want it to be a part. They want to be a part of it. You see a lot of this in video game spaces and anime spaces with like the localizers. A lot of localizers consider themselves a part of the creative team. It's like, no, you're not. You're not supposed to. Your job is technical. It's not supposed to be a creative job. Why are you making creative decisions? This isn't a space for you to be making creative decisions. You make it's a technical job. Just make sure we understand what's going on. And I really think that's it. I think when there is and I don't think it's just the writers. I think it's like producers, directors. Watchmen is a great example. Watchmen is a near 1-to-1, pretty much with the exception of the ending of the film not having a big squid thing.
Okay.
You've seen Watchmen?
Yeah.
Have you ever read it?
I have it, and I have not read it. I picked it up because I think they put it in a collection. I don't know if it's the whole thing or not, but I have an omnibus size something of the Watchmen. I think it's the whole thing. But I never have gone back to read it because I watched the first movie back years ago and just could not get into it.
The Zack Snyder one?
And then finally rewatched it, I think after you said something about it to me one time, about how it was like one of your favorites.
It's fantastic.
What did I miss? And I went back and watched it and I'm like, oh wow, this was actually really good.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's probably one of those things where I was trying to watch it when we were on shift work all the time, and it'd be one of those things I'd turn on and I just couldn't get 20 minutes into it before I'd be out, and you really needed to get deeper into it before it really got into the good parts of the story.
Well, Watchmen is different from other superhero films like Spider-Man, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You can kind of passively watch that. To really, I guess, appreciate the Watchmen film, you gotta watch that and watch that only.
Yeah.
You gotta pay attention.
Yeah.
Not that it's complicated or anything, but a big part of it is it's an experiential film. Like you gotta be with it.
Yeah.
To understand why it's great.
I think the only thing I've really seen much alteration on with anime is probably sort of self-censoring. Did you watch Chainsaw Man?
I did.
I'd read it already and was watching, and I was like,
See, I have the manga, but I haven't read it yet.
As we're moving along the story, I'm like, I feel like something's missing. What am I missing? And it's the part in one of the early issues where there's like a little girl that's a demon that tries to trap him, and he kills the little girl. Yeah. And I was like, I got that. That's probably pretty violent for them to do.
Yeah.
On it, it might even actually change how it would be rated. Although I don't know how it could be rated any worse because it's already pretty violent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super violent, but it even seemed like that was a line that they didn't want to cross there.
Well, I do know a lot of animated studios now are considering the West, like when they're making anime, and yeah. I mean that could have just been it. They could have been like, America wouldn't like this. Yeah.
I never thought twice about it in the book. It was just like there was a character, you could tell that it was an evil thing that was trying to lure him in. I don't remember the exact scenario, but I think it was before he fought the bat, the big bat.
Oh, that was real early.
I think it was, or it was either right after that or right before that. Okay. But and then of course they actually blurred it in what I saw. Was that on Hulu? I guess maybe I watched it. I don't know if that was a Hulu blurring or if that was just a release blurring, where when he's kissing the girl and she throws up in his mouth.
Good, yeah, okay.
Because I think that was just we don't even know how to rate that. That's just so vile. It was like, I remember seeing that in the book, and I was just like, ooh, wow. I was like, I can't believe that just happened.
So it does happen a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think I've ever seen anything that was altering the story or the vision of the manga. I think it was just literally like, we probably don't want to show you a little girl getting cut up by a dude with chainsaws.
Right.
Or we're just going to blur this part where this girl blows chunks in the guy's mouth. Like, But
I did get curious because I've been watching Evangelion. I did get curious about the manga because I knew a manga existed for it.
I need to find. Oh my gosh, this is a really tall guy with glasses that worked with us in Dispatch.
Anyway,
he might have been a clerk in front of you. I cannot remember. He had some old manga stuff that I don't know if it was his or his brother's, and he just heard maybe me talking about it one day, and he brought it, and I think some of it is Evangelion manga.
Oh, cool.
Remind me to go look. I think I have it somewhere, and I think it's just a couple pieces of it, so it probably is not enough to. If you know the story, you might be able to just read them as they are. But
I discovered, I did not know this before looking into this. The Evangelion manga was made after the film, after the series. The series came first.
Is Neo Genesis a different thing?
I don't think so.
That's the same thing.
Yeah. No, Neon Genesis. Well, is there a Neo Genesis?
Maybe it's Neon.
Maybe.
It seems like that's the name on the books. I've never read
Neon Genesis. Evangelion. Is there Neo Genesis? Neo Genesis manga.
I'll have to dig them out.
No, it just comes up with Neon Genesis.
It's the same thing. Okay.
It's probably the same thing.
I think I've got a couple of copies of it, but it's random pieces.
There's a handful of anime that falls under this, and they're very popular. Cowboy Bebop, Code Geass, Fooly Cooly, Kill la Kill, and Gurren Lagann. That surprised me.
That they were
a series first, a series and anime first, and then they made the manga.
Huh.
I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Now there's a couple of situations where that kind of happened in the West, like Ultimate Spider-Man. I feel like was after the Spider-Man cartoon. So it wasn't a 1-to-1 adaptation like these will be, but it was like inspired. The Archie TMNT comics, totally after the Saturday morning cartoon. I mean, there's IDW right now has a series called Saturday Morning Cartoon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So they're just putting on page what already happened.
It's just inspired. It's not 1-to-1.
Oh,
there was one or two comics early in the Archie run that was just literally the cartoon. It's an episode of the cartoon in a comic. There was just a couple. But aside from that, I couldn't really think of. really couldn't think of anywhere that's happened in the
I
West.
see them in bookstores all the time. After a movie comes out, there'll be like a novelization.
Novelizations are huge, yeah.
But I've never bought one because I'm just like, if they just threw this together after this movie came apart,
Sometimes I hear about there being details in the novel that weren't in the film that kind of gives you like insight.
Okay.
Which is cool. And I know the Labyrinth book that was written based on the movie from like the early 90s.
Yeah.
That's like a stupidly expensive book. It's like really sought after.
Huh.
Yeah. Let's see the little price. $10. No. It said $10, but I don't know what that.
But again, you said that's another one that they put the book together afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. But that's regular. That's a regular thing to do in the West. I don't know if they do that in the East at all.
Yeah, I could see that.
I've never read a novel written. I mean, I can't read Japanese, obviously, but I've never read a novel that was written in Japanese and translated to English.
I never have. And unfortunately, because we obviously have grown up with the visual media.
Yeah,
I've been one of the groups of people that's probably been conditioned away from reading a lot of
His
books.
novels gone by the wayside?
Not completely. I've read some. I mean, like I said, the Dark Tower stuff. I've read that. A lot of the Michael Crichton stuff, things like that. A lot of everything else that I read at this point is just kind of historical things. I don't. If I'm going to read something that's a fantasy or a action thing or something like that, I'd rather just watch the movie.
I do audiobooks. I've been going through the Star Wars Extended Universe audiobooks.
Yeah.
Now, I did look up Western animation based on comics that are like loose adaptations. Like Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. That's an animated movie based on The Dark Knight Returns. Like it's very close.
Yeah, there were a couple of those DC animated things that were like two parts that were basically they did follow the movies, right?
Which movies?
The theatrical, like all the Dark Knight stuff.
I don't think so.
No,
like the
animated stuff.
Christopher Nolan movies. I don't think there was animated follow-ups to that. The Dark Knight the Dark Knight Returns is Frank Miller's.
That's all the Frank Miller stuff.
Yeah, it's Frank Miller stuff.
And that's all pretty much.
Yeah, that's
1-to-1.
Yeah, or
pretty close.
Yeah, they're pretty close.
Okay.
Batman Year One, and The Killing Joke. It's funny that they're all Batman.
Yeah.
Is pretty 1-to-1, but there's apparently a prologue that's about 30 minutes long that isn't in the comic book.
Okay. I've watched both of those. It's been a while. I remember The Killing Joke, I think, is one of the first animated Batman movies that I saw, and then started to realize that there was a whole bunch of them. And
whole bunch.
My daughter has always been a big Batman fan, so I got that like collection of all those movies that came out on Blu-ray and stuff. And I don't know what else they've done beyond that. I think they do like a Batman like as a samurai, like an ancient samurai. I think some of those came out after.
And that's just set in feudal Japan.
Yeah. Some of that came out after that collection, but I think that collection has most of the good stuff, like the Under the Red Hood and some of those. It's a shame that those properties are always bouncing around, because they for a while were on Tubi, even, where you could see them free, and I don't know who has them at the moment. If they're on a Paramount, my guess is that's where they ended up.
Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Have you heard about that one?
Mm-hmm.
It's just set like back in Victorian times. Well, it's kind of cool. I haven't seen it. It's a cool premise.
Yeah.
And let's see, both the Spider-Man animated series and the X-Men animated series from the 90s, they adapt plot lines from the comics, but it's not a 1-to-1. They'll have the Phoenix Saga or the Clone Saga. but again,
Okay.
not 1-to-1.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the X-Men stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That the attempts to pull that into the movies struck me the wrong way because I had the animated versions in my head because that was what I saw first, and I don't know how accurate all of those were.
Before looking this information up, I would have guessed that, because I mean, obviously I just know because we live in the West, that pretty much the comic industry and the film industry and animated industry of these properties are separate. I mean, you're going to get different stories if you watch these different, if you read versus you watch.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there were any like series in Japan that didn't first have a manga, because I knew they had a lot of like the magazines that have manga that come out every week, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just assumed that was like the pipeline. You know, first you have to get the manga out, and then if it's popular, they'll make an animation of it.
That was always my assumption, is that all the manga kind of came through that thing where you were getting it as a weekly serial series, you know,
Right.
that you would have to kind of wait for it all to come out a week at a time. But I don't know, we saw one store when we were there that was like a big manga place, and it was a sea of stuff that we had no idea of even how to look through there. It was obviously, of course, in Japanese too, so
Right.
but I mean, there was collections like the weekly books. Is it Shoujin Jump? Is that a name of the magazine?
I think that's that is the publication.
Maybe a company that publishes all that.
I think maybe Shoujin is the company, Jump is the publication.
I gotcha.
I think. But this kind of goes right, like, again, we're kind of back to The Walking Dead, where it's The Walking Dead isn't a 1-to-1. Now, as someone who's a fan of The Walking Dead, would you have preferred it to be 1-to-1, or do you like that as different?
I like the 1-to-1. I kind of come back to Chainsaw Man.
Okay.
I guess we're going to spoil a little bit of that, but when it gets up to the, I can't remember the girl's name. The girl that's sort of like in charge of the agents, that
I don't remember her name.
gets all the people at the temple, and
The pink hair girl.
is just blowing people up all at once. Like, you think she gets killed on the train, and then she doesn't. I forgot, but she has to she has to have a person in front of her, and then she uses like her power to kill that person, and it kills somebody else where they are. I can't remember exactly how that worked, but the way that happened in the show, I almost kind of would have liked to not have read that beforehand, because I was watching it with my son. I knew it was coming, and I was like, this is going to be really cool if they do that the way they did it in the book. And seeing his reaction to seeing it actually happen was like, oh man, I wish I hadn't read all that. And there's so many things in The Walking Dead that were like that you missed because they changed the story, that were so striking in the comic book. Like the first thing, you know, with Lori running away, carrying the baby, and they both get shot and then eaten. It was just like, that was a super powerful moment. That would have been a season ending moment, or a good midway point for a season to really leave you just sitting there. I've got to see more of this. And they did a lot of that by changing the storylines to other things, but skipping through the way they did the thing with Negan, where they brought it up to the point where he was sitting there pointing the bat at people in the show, and then they end it and they leave you sitting there and I wonder who. I think they even like give you the sound of somebody getting hit and some people screaming. That was overdone. I think that was handled wrong. If you just did that in the course of one of the last episodes of that season, or even the midway point of that season, and just let it happen naturally, you would have blown people's minds. But you had people that were speculating about it, and then people that already read the comics that were spoiling it for people. Yeah. So by the time it came back and happened, it was just like, yeah, we got it. And if you just done it 1-to-1, where you're sitting there watching him, he's got them all lined up. It's like, wow, this doesn't look good. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, he just knocks Glenn's eye out, and you're just like, holy crap. Especially Glenn, Stephen Yeun, is that was Yeun? Stephen Yeun, I think. Such a likable actor, and especially the show, the way they portrayed him all the time. He's always sort of the peacemaker and the guy that's always willing to do everything. He becomes Maggie's love interest and all that. That would have been so much more powerful to just wipe him out in an episode without the build up to it. And again, I don't think you could have done the Michonne thing 1-to-1. that was pretty rough.
Just like you're saying in Chainsaw Man, sometimes because of standards or some other reason, you can't do an exact 1-to-1.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're talking about, like with The Walking Dead. I mean, their characters died in the comic book are alive for seasons. I mean, characters don't even exist are there.
Which one of these was the Science Saru? Was that the Scarlet?
Yes.
I think I mentioned that before we were talking about them, that they did that Japan Sinks.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the story of this family that was like kind of trying to get through the city as it sunk and all this. They were cold. Not even relentless isn't the right word, because it wasn't like people were just dying one after the other. But some of the characters in that little animated movie, they die the way that it would happen if a group of us were trying to get through the city and people made mistakes and it wasn't a big dramatized thing. It was like, I really like that dude and you just killed him. It was like, come on. Like I think there's a scene in that where they're just trying to like dig. There's a fence they're trying to get across that had like barbed wire or something, and they decide they're going to dig under it, and it turns out it's like around a military facility or something. So they dig down into it, and it's like got a mine there. And it's just like the dude hits it as I guess the dad of the family. He hits it, and it's just like bam, and it's just like, what? It's like, I thought that was the main character. You just blew him up. But there's some power to that in storytelling, where you don't.
Well, this goes into something completely different, but I think a lot of creators, a lot of directors and writers have got a sort of how Joss Whedon made all the dialogue quippy.
Yeah.
I think J.J. Abrams made all the plots question boxy, where you gotta, what's gonna happen? You gotta keep everybody guessing what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
If I wanted all of my movies to be like an episode of Skinwalker Ranch, then I would be somebody that messes up a lot of movies, because I hate that thing where like there's gonna be a big reveal. Come back next episode, and come back next episode. No, it was just sewer gas. It wasn't an alien.
That's right.
Well, okay.
I think my assumption, and is straight up assumption through ignorance, is that generally speaking, like as a general rule, television shows are based on existing mangas. If you have an original idea, it goes to a movie. Yeah. That was kind of my assumption. Even though, I mean, you do have like Ghost in the Shell, which is based on manga and stuff like that. But I don't think all of the Ghost in the Shell properties are based on mangas.
Yeah, I have no idea.
No.
It's a really hashed out, pretty developed world, but you could do that in screenwriting as easily as you could in manga. But
yeah, Ghost, like the standalone complex, adapts elements of the manga, also features a unique story and timeline.
Yeah.
So it's more of like a kind of like we do in the West, where it's like, oh, well, we're going to take this property and kind of tell a new story.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say I've done a lot of reading manga and then watching the anime. I mean, I kind of usually do one or the other. I don't really do both.
I've mixed and matched on that. I was reading Walking Dead, getting ahead of the show, and I don't know that I regret that, but it made a lot of the show, when stuff happened, just be like, really? Is that what we're doing? Okay.
A general rule of thumb that is good to go by is always always watch or consume the adaptation first.
Yeah. I was doing it with Attack on Titan, and just got so off kilter with that because that show took so long to come out. And then I got to where I was like, I don't really want to read this for an anime that's not going to even be here for another year. So I stopped on some of that. And like I said, with Chainsaw Man, I kind of regretted seeing where it went before actually getting to see where the show went itself. So I don't know if there's a right way to do it or not. I'm sure that comes down to personal preference. I really like the way manga are designed, and the only thing I wish the thing I really loved about the Walking Dead thing was just the size of it, and that the print of the omnibus, same size print as the comics and stuff like that. It still was in black and white, which I liked. But getting the detail that you got on that I just really enjoyed. I wish that manga was bigger, just so you could expand it.
Well, that's why I like the omnibuses they're coming out with. Like Berserk, it's like that big.
Same thing, but it's just been adapted to a bigger print.
It's blown up. It's great.
I would like that more on some of those, because some of it's like such crazy detail in it. You just want to see it better. And maybe that's just me being old, but yeah, I've always liked the storytelling and the manga. So my instinct says to just read the manga if you really want to absorb it, and then just see what they did with it in animation and just appreciate it being what it is. I guess the manga just gives it to you faster than waiting for a studio to animate it too. I don't know that I've seen too many things that were really not handled poorly, but not handled the way I wanted, other than Titan. Titan just took so long, and almost kind of got to the point to where I think some people had lost interest in it because it just hadn't come back, and there were so many other things that had popped up by the time it came back around again that
I only watched like half of the first season, and just from what I saw, I felt like there was a lot of filler. So
they were long in between some of the fights and things like that, longer than I would have preferred, but the fights were so good that they were really worth waiting for. And they talk about how, I think my son's even read about how much painstaking detail they went into animating some of that it just really took an immense amount of time.
You could just tell, just by looking at it.
But I judge those kind of things too. I think they burned a lot of their followers on that, and that I'm at cons at least every 3 weeks, if not every 2 weeks in between.
That's a good way to gauge interest. You see what people are wearing.
You went to seeing people in Attack on Titan gear with all the swords and I can't think of what the
3D
Scout Regiment stuff. Yeah. And went from seeing that all the time to where if you see maybe 1 or 2 people at a show still wearing it, you almost kind of look at them like, oh, you're still wearing Titan stuff. But
that is completely aside, but that is one of my criticisms of pop culture in general. Is it's like you have to stay current. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't have to. I'm obviously, if I'm playing Maniac Mansion, a marathon. Games from the mid 80s and early 90s.
If a show comes out and it's terrible, then you're not required to like dress up like it.
Right. And if it's a show that you love, you dress up like it forever. Doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, you still get people dressing up like, Cowboy Bebop and stuff like that. So
one of the things that stuck out for me, did you see the latest Beetlejuice movie?
Yeah, Beetlejuice.
Did you think that was as terrible as I thought it was, or
unnecessary?
Okay.
I don't. I liked the cartoon better.
I found the movie painful. It was not good.
I don't think it added anything to the franchise. I don't think it.
The reason I brought that up is right after it came out, I don't know how many people came dressed as Lydia in the red dress and stuff. And it's like, I wanted to be like, did y'all watch the movie? Did you really think that was worth dressing up as, because I don't know, if you saw the same thing I saw, I wouldn't have spent money on that. But yeah, I think there's a race in groups of people that like to cosplay to be the first one.
Be the first. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you got now you got people like starting cosplay even before the stuff comes out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've meant to do it on our social media stuff. I've gotten some good pictures of turbo grannies from
I bet.
from stuff, and I'm just not good at coming back to social media and updating stuff. But I need to get some of those pictures posted. There's been some pretty good stuff. And what's her name? Momo?
The girl?
Yes.
Yeah. That's easy cosplay.
That's an easy one. I see that all
That's
the
a
time.
real easy
There's like
cosplay.
a guy doing something completely different. And there's a girl in the pink sweater and the skirt. I'm like, what? It's nice that they made. It's almost like the stuff from Chainsaw Man. All the agents from that. You just have to put on a white shirt and a black suit, and put some horns on your head.
I think you made me think of this. A good way to compare how the East versus West adapts things for their audiences is Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
So Cowboy Bebop was an anime, then it was a manga. I'm assuming, complete assumption, that the manga is just 1-to-1 to the anime.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Netflix Cowboy Bebop?
Nope.
Oh my goodness, it's terrible. It is.
It's one of those ones.
Terrible.
What's the Snow White girl, Ziegler?
Yep.
That just wrecked that whole chance of that movie doing anything by just coming out and just being moronic on film. I think that girl that did
the actress that played Faye.
Yeah. Did she just do the same thing? She
Yeah,
just
she
came
was-
out and like told everybody that you're all idiots. And I'm like, how about this? How about I just don't watch your property?
Yeah, pretty much what happened was what happened was the fan base was critical of the fact that she wasn't wearing Faye's classic look.
Yeah.
And so she lashed out and called people certain things.
We go to an anime con and you'll see people still dressing up as Faye. It's a very popular anime.
I recently looked up because I got curious. I was like, well, are people cosplaying as the net? Because she recently came out and was like, well, if they're going to adapt a property, they need to be respectful to the original property.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm glad at least now you agree to that. Yeah. And I looked it up, and if you Google like Cowboy Bebop, Faye Valentine, or just Faye Valentine cosplay, it's all classic Faye.
Yeah.
If you add Netflix to it, there was one person that did the Netflix Faye Valentine, and then it was all classic Faye again.
Was that one person just sitting there like this?
It's just all mad.
Like, I hate you all.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that. Like if that was the only thing wrong with that whole thing, the whole series, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
It was a mess. It was a mess of a series.
Yeah.
And that's all you could almost like do a class on how not to adapt franchises using that show.
The only one that I tried, and it was sufficiently bad enough to just be like, I'm making the declaration now that I'm never watching a live action, was the Death Note one. They made it into a movie. You know, I was even actually kind of hyped for that a little bit because they cast William Dafoe as the Shimigami,
the demon.
The demon.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And then I watched the movie, and I'm like, I'm gonna go just try to scrub my brain and pretend that never happened. And I didn't see any of that because that was awful.
I never consumed anything Death Note. I was aware of it, just passively. I watched that, and I thought it was terrible.
Oh no,
it was just a terrible film.
The series is really good. I think that's the second thing we watched.
I think you can kind of hang that on the same rack as like Dragon Ball Z Evolution or whatever it's called, and maybe Avatar.
Oh yeah.
just here are terrible live action Western adaptations of manga. They just need to stop.
Yeah,
they just need to stop.
Now, one I would consider watching if somebody would try to do it even close. Have you watched any of the Fate stuff? Fate Zero?
No.
Where they're basically coming back and fighting each other to get the Holy Grail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like King Arthur and stuff. Like, there's a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Genghis Khan. I can't remember which all different.
It amuses me when people try to use like Fate as a Well, why don't you care about these gender swaps? Like as an example.
If they would come back and do those like the first series where they didn't do all the gender swap stuff, it was just.
Was Fate based on something?
I don't even know which one happened before the other.
Nope, the Fate series did not originate as a manga.
Yeah.
Oh, it started as Fate Stay Night type moon.
Yeah.
Okay.
That could be a cool live action thing if somebody would try to handle it right, but I don't know if they're capable of that. So it's probably just another one. Just leave it alone. Don't ruin it.
Has there been? Now, I am a Ghost in the Shell Scarlett Johansson apologist. I really enjoy the live action Ghost in the Shell film.
Yeah.
However, I understand the criticism. So I'm not going to say, well, this is an example of a good adaptation. Are there any examples that you can think of where the West has adapted an anime or manga property and it's been good?
The only thing that I can think of, and I never read the book, I think you let me borrow it, and it was one of those things I held for a couple weeks, and I felt bad that I hadn't even had a chance to read it, so I just gave it back to you. Was the Tom Cruise, The Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
That was really good.
Okay. Thank you, Tom Cruise. I agree with that. I 100% agree.
I didn't even know that was even based on one to you. I think I'd seen the movie.
But that's still that.
However, that came up, you told me about it, and I was like, "That's an anime, seriously?"
Yeah. But that's still that is an adaptation. That is nowhere near 1-to-1.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine.
Even the aliens look completely different. Like they redesigned the aliens almost from the ground up for the film.
My hang up on. I like Scarlett Johansson fine in the remake, but you literally had Major sitting right here.
Right.
Rinko Kikuchi, that's the girl from Pacific Rim. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have had to do anything to her to have her just be Major, and she's already been in American films. If you could just do that whole production, not change very much of it other than just putting her into that spot. And I'm sure we got to get a big name actress that'll draw people to this.
Yeah, I said earlier that I think it's not just the directors, it's not just the writers, it's sometimes the producers, the people who sign the checks that insist on these changes. And I think that was one of those situations. They were like, you want to Ghost in the Shell film? That's fine, but we need a big name American actress to put in there.
And I'm not going to sugarcoat what Ghost in the Shell is. It starts off opening credits with the naked Major being built.
Yeah. It has.
And she dives on one of the most iconic scenes is her diving off the roof and then becoming invisible. And she's naked when she does that. Mm-hmm. I always felt it's like the reason they didn't do that in the movie is because they went and got Scarlett Johansson and she didn't want to be naked for the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Renko would have wanted to have been either.
But what do they call it? Cheesecake? Is that what they call it? When it's like female, like it's like sexualizing the female just to entice the audience. It's like cheesecake for the women, beefcake for the men.
If you had done that with Scarlett Johansson, it probably would have been the best-selling movie of that year because people would have just gone to see it, and that's a bad commentary on film.
But I don't even think that was a decision on Scarlett Johansson. I think that was again probably like the directors or the producers because they wanted like a PG-13 or something.
Yeah.
Because like that same year she did a movie called Under the Skin and she's just all out in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those movies that's like, wow, did I eat a mushroom or did I?
That was a weird film.
Somebody drugged me.
Yeah. That was I watched it and then I had to watch someone talk about it because I was like, what happened? What?
Yeah. I think I followed the story. I was just like, wow. It's like who sat down and wrote this? It's like, this is just weird. She's just melting and liquidating people. I'm not sure I ever got if there was a point to that movie or not. But.
Well, that's kind of where I was. Like, I understood, okay, she's an alien, she's taking people ashore. But, like, at the end, when she, like, dies, I don't know. There was just
I didn't feel
plot points at the end where I felt it didn't flow.
I never felt a need to go back and try to rewatch that and try to figure that one out. I was just like, wow, okay, that's.
It was an interesting film.
That's the young me that I would have rented that movie and not known what was involved, and I would have been just in total fear that like my parents were going to walk in.
Oh, you know they would have. They walked in right at that scene.
In the wrong scene. I'd have been like, I would have lost my ability to drive for like 3 weeks. And, what are you doing? What's this trash? I was like, I didn't. This said it was about aliens. I'm sorry.
So I asked ChatGPT this about aliens. Yeah, okay, young man about aliens species. That was the I bought species from the video store when they shouldn't have sold it to me. I was just a kid.
Oh yeah.
Are there any book adaptations of movies or TVs that are considered better than the source material? That's what I asked ChatGPT. This ChatGPT, so take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Because it told me Star Wars expanding universe. I was like, that's not really what I'm asking. I guess you did tell me that is what I'm asking, but that's not what I was meaning. But what they did tell me was Blade Runner. Apparently, there is a book adaptation, because Blade Runner is an adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah, and that always blows my mind. How many of Philip K. Dick's stuff
have been adapted? Yeah.
I mean, so there's Minority Report.
Yeah.
The Man in the High Castle. There's all these things. Like, did that dude just wake up like when he was 20 and just write until he died?
Right.
I mean, it's an amazing list of stuff that he did, and I didn't know that he had anything to do with Blade Runner. That's another one that's just added to it. It's like, he seriously wrote that too?
See, I feel a lot of authors, because you get some authors who just get all these adaptations, and I think there are a lot of authors that should have that. Like for me, Frank Herbert, again, Dune.
Yeah.
I wish more Frank Herbert books got adapted. One of my favorite novels of all time is called The White Plague, and that would have been perfect in the past few years. But the basic premise is a scientist is in Ireland, and the IRA blows up a bomb and kills his family, and he goes crazy and makes a plague and releases it on the world, and tells everybody, and it just kills women, because he wants to take the women away from everyone else because they took his wife away.
Wow.
And he said send the British back to British and the Irish back to Irish. And he said, let my plague run its course on these lands, or I will unleash it upon the world.
Wow.
Fantastic book. I would love to see it in film.
Must be Anthony Fauci's favorite book.
It might be. But let's see. So the Blade Runner book they have a book adaptation of the movie that goes more into Deckard's inner thoughts and motivations. So that interests me.
Yeah.
I might see if there's an audiobook. That'd be good.
Yeah.
And then it also says there's Alien novelization. See, I've read Alien books, but it's always the expanded universe stuff. I didn't know there was novelizations of the films.
Yeah.
And it said there are Alien adaptations that include deleted scenes.
My exposure to Alien stuff has been the Dark Horse comic stuff, and some of that is great.
Great. Some of it's dumb.
Yeah.
There was one where an alien turned into a mountain.
I don't think I read that one.
It's dumb.
The thing that always strikes me on those Alien Dark Horse things is, I think I've said some of that before, it's that older style.
It's like sketchy.
Like something you'd see in like a 70s or 60s like newspaper strip or something. Mm-hmm. But it still just translates really well. You kind of get over the fact that it's like, wow, this is drawn really poorly after like 2 pages, because they were all really good stories. But man, I guess that's not a novelization. But
really considering the different ways the East versus West do it, I don't know if I prefer one over the other, because I really do like getting new stories with familiar characters in familiar settings. I do like that. I don't know. I think there's pros and cons for doing it each way.
I think if you locked away everybody that had any rights to any of these properties for 5 years, and just put a moratorium on anybody producing stuff, and maybe had them take a few writing classes or something, and just maybe come back to it. It just seems like we can't get out of this cycle of we have to produce something else. Hasn't been anything out since last summer, we got to do this, and it's like they just keep rushing out all this stuff that's just to the point. I kind of thought the Superman movie might be kind of cool to go see. I like the fact that Nathan Fillion's in it more than any other part of that.
Yes,
because he's an awesome actor. And outside of that, I don't care anything about the Superman comics or storyline, or I'm not walking around. I don't own a Superman comic. I don't have a T-shirt. I was just kind of hoping it might be a cool movie, and it seems like it's just going to be another thing just for people to argue about. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm ready for all that to just go away for a while and just take all these guys that are writing and making these movies and give them some historical accounts of things that happened that were cool, battles and whatever, heroic things that happened in history, and just, shoot that, do that for 5 years, and then whenever y'all get all this out of your system, let's come back and do superhero things again. Or I always fear with like the anime stuff that the more failures that they keep having out of these American studios, that they're just going to keep turning to that kind of stuff and trying to adapt it, because there's nothing left for them to ravage at this point. That they've already kind of destroyed the old comics, and I don't want to see them. My worry about that is that if that money starts going to the Japanese stuff, then they'll start getting more people influencing.
What's already happening?
Some of the Japanese stuff, and then once they start influencing it, the same stuff that's ruined Disney and Star Wars and Marvel stuff is just going to start infecting their stuff too. And I don't know. Maybe they need to build a wall around Japan, just not let any Americans in.
Now, I don't care for when Americans make adaptations of Japanese media. The opposite happens sometimes. There was an X-Men anime. Did you even ever see this?
I saw it on something that we had it was available on one of our streaming services
years ago,
and yeah. I kind of thought about watching it and never did. And didn't they do like Street Fighter 2?
Well, that is.
Is that their thing though?
I mean, that is Japanese Street Fighter.
It seems like I saw those at the same time, that there was like all these Street Fighter series and there was X-Men series, and I was just like,
I mean, it may have been around the same time.
I don't know if I want to watch those or not. I never did. Now, of course, they've all been claimed by different subscription services, so I missed my window there.
I watched one episode of the Wolverine one. I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're kind of the same thing. That Batman Samurai, isn't that like an anime?
They tried to do it in an anime style, but I think that was still American studios, and it was bad. It looked it looked so cool, and
Warner Brothers Japan. So,
it looked like an amazing idea. And I remember watching that. It was one of the Airbnbs we stayed at was logged into like somebody's like Max service, and it was on there. I was like, oh, I get to finally watch it. And I watched it like 30 minutes into it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is bad.
I mean, the director is the guy who did the opening animation for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The writer wrote Gurren Lagann, and the character designer was from Afro Samurai. So
they must have had some clashing visions. Or
producers,
something.
I'm telling you, the producers ruin it.
Yeah.
Now, one property, I don't know if you've ever even seen this, Witchblade. You ever seen the Witchblade anime?
No.
It is nothing like, because I was a fan of Witchblade from the 90s. Top Cow stuff, I love Top Cow. The anime is nothing like the comic book. It is a completely new adaptation that is just like barely visually inspired by Witchblade. Great anime. And it's a light anime too. Like it doesn't deal with really like heavy themes and things like that. Yeah. It's just, hey, there's this woman, she has a daughter, she's doing her best, and she gets this crazy superpower and has to save everybody. Okay. And it's kind of the same situation where like, and I think this is probably a thematic throughout a lot of anime, where like she gets this superpower, but the people she's fighting against is like the same superpower. It's like the same force.
Yeah.
Like what powers her powers them, and so she's also they're kind of fighting against the similar nature of those, like the Witchblade power suits.
Okay.
Essentially, like I was thinking, like within Evangelion, the Avas are kind of like the angels, like they're similar in nature.
Yeah.
You know, one of the angels. Then this was one of the things that I had forgotten about or I never knew. Like one of the angels was a corrupted Ava. It's like I don't remember that.
That seems to stick out in my mind from one of the movies. That I was thinking that maybe I thought that one of the mechas had been taken over or something, but I couldn't remember. Don't remember the details enough of that.
Well, they do go berserk, so that might be what you're thinking of.
I think so.
They do go berserk,
yeah,
which is kind of cool. All right, you got anything else you want to talk about regarding the different adaptations?
No. I think you mentioned maybe coming back to Sinners, since we did actually just see that, and that was still kind of fresh in our minds, and don't have to try to go back and try to remember as much because it was only a week or two ago.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're gonna talk about Sinners, because we were talking about it, and it's like, hey, we do want to discuss it a little bit more because we do have differing opinions.
We were mentioning it in the appetizer part, right? Because it's just something we've just seen.
So if you're watching this as they come out a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
But we figure this is a good place to talk about it. Full spoiler alert for Sinners. We'll talk about all the parts that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
We're not going to worry about, hopefully you've seen it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you're going to spoil too much. I think you could probably predict your way through that one if you were watching it. So.
Yeah. All right. So overall, what did you think of Sinners? Like, did you like it? Dislike it?
Overall,
yeah.
The first hour and a half I was enjoying. Yeah. It was a period piece. I love that Depression era stuff where you still have the Chicago gangsters, and there were little hints of that. Wasn't really a big part of that. They were just. It took me a second to verify because they did look kind of different that he was playing both roles.
Right, that actually took me a little while. It was because
I was like,
I don't know, it was a few minutes into the film, and I was like,
who's that other dude?
Is that?
It's like he looks so much like him. And it's like, oh, that's Michael B. Jordan. It's like he had the
same guy.
But he was playing Smoke and Stack.
Yeah. Now I will say that technology has gotten so good that it's amazing that you don't even notice it.
Yeah.
Because like in the 90s and 2000s when they did that, it was kind of. It was kind of obvious.
It was obvious that you're piecing together stuff.
Right, because they'd stand a little far apart. If they hand each other something, it was like real. They'd stay separate. But this was seamless. I'm assuming they use like the stand-in with like deep faking or something because it was perfect.
And I guess an hour. I keep saying an hour and a half. I didn't time it to see where the changes happened.
Yeah.
I kind of questioned several points through that opening pretty long stretch. It's like, is this about vampires? Because we're not seeing anything about vampires at all.
Yeah.
Like you had this thing, and this is where I think there was a mistake in putting the story together, where you had the real estate agent who's totally not KKK.
Yeah.
I swear to you guys, I'm just a real estate agent that sells you this building. That seems like that would have been to the point to establish something nefarious going on, but they didn't. It's just like, here's a building, we bought it, and then they go back to the story of them inviting the different musicians and the cooks and all the other people to be involved. That
could have been a really interesting, because I didn't even consider that like that plot point.
Yeah,
but that could have been really
that's
interesting,
one of my
especially
to that movie is that you need to go back to that part of that movie and tie in something about vampires to that location.
Well, as they went around doing things and collecting people and things like that, it would have been interesting to see like odd things happening in that building.
Yeah,
build up to it.
Something to involve vampires at some point.
Yeah.
Because I literally had been there. We're over an hour into the movie. I get up to go take a bathroom break and walk down the steps, and I'm rounding the corner.
Came in.
And this like sun sets, and then all of a sudden there's this guy that comes up running to this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, beating on the door, and he's smoking.
You're like, what I miss?
Well, I stood in the hallway and watched.
Oh, okay.
I really had to go pee, and it was kind of like, wait, what's this? And the guy was like, hey, I don't remember that exactly how I said it. I said something about it earlier. He's like, the Choctaws are coming after me or something. And I'm like, wait, the Choctaw Indians? And it's like, what? Okay. And then like they let him in, and I guess he kills everybody in the house, or he bites them all and they turn to vampires. I got to the point where I was like, I gotta go pee. I'm gonna go. So I missed a little bit of that. And I came back and asked you, I was like, what in the heck just happened? I was like, what? And you're like, well, he came in and he like turned his people into vampires. And I'm like, okay, who was he?
Where'd that come from?
I was like, who was he? And it was like, there was no explanation.
No, there's no explanation at all.
And then from there,
you get the vampire hunters come up, the Indians.
You come back to the place they converted into the juke joint, and I still don't understand the scene. What I'm sure it was somebody's little. This would be really cool if I worked this in, and they just worked it in with no
the magic.
Started playing guitar, and all of a sudden, like Bootsy Collins and other people showed up, and people were rapping and spinning turntables, and it was like, I know that was supposed to be like a big metaphoric scene.
Well, you were talking about you would have liked the building itself to have some sort of association with the vampires. Yeah. The idea is that his music called the vampires. You know, that was kind of like, you know, that they were saying that was the foundation of that. That's the call to the vampires.
That's the best stretch I could take from that. If I was going to edit that movie, I'd cut that whole scene out. That was just like, why are we seeing people spinning turntables in Bootsy Collins? I know that was a vision that somebody had, and they thought it looked cool on screen. I don't think it worked at all. I was like, stick with the 30s theme. You were doing that well. You built a world there. It was really well shot, well acted. And then from there, that movie just started to just tail off into just the typical Star Wars thing. We have to have this happen so we can have this happen so we can have this happen. And it's like the folk band showed up, and they were the people from the cabin, I guess. But why they were folk music players, they played cheesy music, and everybody kind of looked like they were gonna laugh at them. So I guess that was your first chance to be like, well, white people are stupid because their music's stupid. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm not into folk music well enough to know if it was being derided.
It seemed to me like it was trying to highlight how stupid folk music was to me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You like blues better. I like blues music better than that too. So we're in agreement there. Thanks for making a scene about that. And then from there, everything that happened was like, I have to have a plot reason to go outside so I can get bit. And I can turn into a vampire because we can't invite the vampires in. We've established that we know somehow that we're not supposed to invite vampires in, even though nobody knows anything about vampires in this whole story. Maybe that's another place that you could have done something with, is maybe there could have been some sort of vampire presence in Chicago that followed them back. But again, they didn't do anything. It was just nothing. So it's like, I've got to go to the car. I've got to go pee. I've got to go do this. I need to have a plot reason to go outside so I can be bit. And it just, when you get into that kind of movie, I'm like, man. Well, it's like, did you run out of time, or are you just that bad at this? Or
I don't know if this is the first film I've ever seen from Ryan Coogler that was his film, because I know like he did Black Panther.
Okay.
And what else did he do? He did another film Creed.
Creed was a great movie.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know if did he write it? Let's see. He says he was the producer. Well, that's the producer on all of them. All right, let's see. Creed was written by Ryan Coogler, Keenan Coogler. So he did write that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that kind of makes my criticism of the movie even a little stronger, I think, because
you know he's a good writer.
He's better than that, I think.
Now I want to address a couple of things. I have seen commentary about the fact that they use the Irish, and how the Irish, similar to the Africans when they came to the country, they were used as slaves and servants and things like that. Like the Irish were mistreated, by the people here. Yeah. So that there was almost a kinship there that was going on, both with the music and
was the Irish supposed to be the folk guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even catch that they were supposed to be Irish.
Okay, let me look that up. That was the commentary I saw, and I was like, I thought that seemed like interesting commentary.
Kind of sounds to me like maybe somebody trying to
justify it,
trying to salvage some positivity on that. I don't know.
Irishman Remick. So yeah.
I could have found some people that lived down the road here that could have given us some better Irish
Been more
accents than that.
But yeah, it says that he was drawn to the blues music that was played, and I think that might be like the theme that was trying to tie it together. If they wanted to do that when he was
him like somewhere like hearing it from a distance, they just literally show up and are like, "Hey, would you like to hear us play music?"
I could see there being a narrative point that might have been missed when they were driving down the road and Sammy was playing his guitar, and then a little while later the vampire's just out in the middle of nowhere. If he was playing and the vampire was like almost like it transfixed and followed the music, and that's why he was out in the middle of nowhere in the sun, that would kind of make sense.
And I could sit down and spend 30 minutes if you give us the script and we could fix the movie. I mean, there's so many things that just happen for no reason at all.
I mean, we're back to the Chekhov's gun.
It's almost like they assumed that maybe you understood what they were thinking, so they never put it onto film. And then it just goes into this random vampire fight that, you knew that's where it was going. But it's not. It wasn't really even a satisfying fight, I didn't think. You've got these guys that were gangsters from Chicago that have Tommy guns and stuff like that. It's like, why were they not just going full on gangster on these guys? And they saved that till the end, which was the point where I was like, I need for this to be over so I can leave and go do something else. Because then the real estate guy comes back and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm KKK.
He is KKK.
And here's a bunch of white guys and we're going to ruin your day. And he comes out and just murders all of them. And it's just...
That was a little bit of a power fantasy.
A little bit of one.
A little bit.
That was just, I don't like white people, so I'm going to film a scene where I just shoot a bunch of them. And I was like, what?
I saw it more again as kind of like as a commentary, but a commentary unassociated with the rest of the film. It was like he wanted to make this point.
The
KKK bad.
That's not commentary. That's known.
I mean, I think that's what it is. He said, "Hey."
Is his commentary that everybody in the South that's white is KKK? Because if so, I take offense to that.
I don't know.
That's why that kind of crap just needs to stop. These kind of movies they do nothing for me. It's tired. I'm tired of people that grow up with iPhones and streaming services and electric cars and everything else. It doesn't matter what color you are, thinking that you're a victim. It's like you're living in the easiest time of the world, in the world's history. We're not under the nuclear threat. There's nobody trying to kill you. Everything that you're struggling against is imaginary and self-inflicted, and stop it. That's my thing. I'm just like, I can't take any more of this.
I'm fine with the inclusion of the KKK members and wanting to inflict harm on Smoke and Stack. I'm fine with that, but why
didn't they have some sort of tie-in to the original sale of the place to them?
Well, that's kind of what I was going to...
being a cursed place that would have been the reason for the vampires to be there. You could have written that in somehow or another. Maybe the KKK burned a vampire there or something.
Well, I don't even think the KKK guys needed to be associated with the vampires. I think they should have shown up at the beginning of the night when they knew that everybody was going to be coming in.
Easiest fix to that is like, how about we just don't include that part?
Well, yeah.
Why not make this movie just, if you want to have a black film by a black director, why do you have to make a white villain in it? Why does there have to be a racial aspect to it? Why can't you just have a vampire movie where...
It's power fantasy.
Where the black guys fight the vampires and win.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I think there was a missed opportunity to have the KKK show up and have the vampires take care of the KKK, and there being a moment of like, well, maybe they're not all that bad,
That's again more of a justification to add this whole idea of everybody in the South was a KKK member, and that's just such BS. I'm tired of that characterization. If we were doing the same kind of characterization against any other group, that all of people in your group are this, then people will be like, well, you're being a racist. I'm like, well, then why is it okay for you to do that?
I think it's a fair criticism. We've discussed it before. I think I'm just a little more.
I guess maybe I'm what am I? Am I 10 years older? 8 years
Yeah,
older?
you're about 10 years old. Yeah,
I'm just 10
older.
years further down the road than you.
That might be it.
I've had enough. It's I don't care what color anybody is. I don't need to identify who's my black friend and who's my white friend and blah blah blah. People are people, and movies like this are just. That frustrates me because he's a good actor.
Yeah,
there's a good premise. It's my favorite time frame. If I could ever be reincarnated and go live in a time, I want to go back and be an enforcer for the mob in the 20s and 30s, just so I can have a Tommy gun and wear a cool hat. I love that time frame. I love Miller's Crossing and Road to Perdition and all those. What's the Sean Connery, Kevin Costner movie? Oh, good Lord. The one about Al Capone where they arrest him. I cannot think of the name of that movie, but
I don't know if it's
I just closed my internet window. I could open it back up. I love that whole time frame.
that's not it.
I love gangster stuff. That to me would have been a great opportunity for there to be a black story with gangsters. I mean, they laid the groundwork for it where they went to Chicago. It kind of sounds like they probably had some kind of interaction with Chicago mob and stole from them or something, and that's how they had their money that was coming back, and
see that
all kinds of groundwork for good storytelling there.
You're touching on a lot of things that, like, I had more issue with all the stuff that they put out there and they didn't do anything with. Yeah. The fact that they stole from the mob, nothing came of that.
Yeah,
that didn't come into the plot at all.
Why can't there be all there needed to be was part of the mob needed to be a vampire.
Yeah,
that could have tied that back into it. It's just
those Indian trackers. Where are they? They just show up
that's
for
the part of the movie.
Like 20 seconds.
All stuff about the KKK and stuff is frustrating to me. That doesn't piss me off as much as I'm running from the Choctaw Indians, and you're like, I was just like, what?
And they're like, sun's going down, we better go.
You never see an Indian. You never see.
I think they should have.
I was just like, what is that?
I think they should have shown up at the end, maybe like save Sammy or something, and given him something. Like we didn't know at the time. Like they gave him. I was thinking kind of like the whole Predator thing. Like, hey, you survived. Here's something. And that led to old Sammy being able to kill. Stack and
some sort of spiritual magic to be able to fight the Indians would have made sense. Then there would have been a reason for we introduced a group of Indians into this story 2 hours ago. Yeah. Here's why we did that. But Untouchables was what I was trying to think of. Okay. For one of the first probably kind of violent R-rated movies I saw with my dad. Loved that movie. It kind of got me into the whole gangster stuff. And when I saw the trailer for Sinners, they showed Michael B. Jordan with that Tommy gun. Yeah, he's been ripped ever since the Creed movies. Anyway, he's sitting there just flexing, shooting that thing. I'm like, oh, that looks so badass. Because I thought that's him fighting vampires, but no, that's just him killing some white guys that are in the story for no reason. And I was come on, man. It was that close to being good, and I think just if I'm giving it a scale of 1 to 10, I give that a 1. It's unnecessary, that kind of stuff to me at this point. People always are talking about racist this and racist that, and how do we stop it? It's like, how about we stop doing crap like that to begin with? That's just not my.
I'm still on the power fantasy. I think directors and writers are entitled to power fantasies now. You want to have a commentary on what that power fantasy is and whether it's appropriate in this day and age. I don't know. It'd
be like saying that this director really doesn't like women. Say he just wants to. He wants to beat women. So let's have a movie at the end. The last 20 minutes of the movie is just a couple women show up and running around just beating the crap out of them. What's the difference? There is none. No. It's fine. It's what I guess is the frustrating part is you can justify it for this one scenario, but in every other scenario, oh, that's racist, that's horrible, you can't do that. I'm like, then you can't do it for the other. Don't give me one or the other. It's either bad all the way around, or we can all just hate everybody, and we can just, if I want to film a thing where I'm walking around just kicking children, that's my movie. I have no desire to do that, but that's...
And I do think, like I said, I do wish those guys had shown up earlier in the night, been victims of the vampires, or at that point.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen maybe the lead vampire, because we already saw that, yes, the sun does hurt him, but he didn't die in the sun when we first saw him. He was running out in the middle of a field and he wasn't dying.
Yeah.
But at the end,
right?
Yeah, he was smoking.
Yeah.
But at the end, he dies in the sun. Well, I mean, he also got silver in the head, so that may have just weakened him. But I mean, they could have just kept with the vampires and had the Tommy gun scene with a bunch of vampires, and that would have been fine. But yeah. It is what it is, and I guess it's one of those things where it's if it degrades the movie, it degrades the movie.
It obviously sounds like it frustrated me because if it was crap from front to end, I'd be like, that movie is dumb, don't watch it. That'd be what I'd have to say about it. And it was close. This is going to be a stretch for you, I'm sure. Have you ever seen the movie Crossroads?
Crossroads.
Ralph Macchio.
No.
It's one of the movies that we own on
that was
VHS, where Ralph Macchio is a blues guitar player.
The Britney Spears film? No, you told me about it. Yeah.
Loved that movie growing up. Ralph Macchio basically goes into the devil's den to free Willie Brown's soul, because he sold his soul to the devil to be able to play blues harmonica. And that lore of the blues being tied to the devil and stuff, it's not just something they created for Crossroads. It comes back to a bunch of old blues songs and the idea of there being a crossroads where you could go make a deal with the devil to be able to play the guitar or be able to play blues, harmonica, or whatever. If they wanted to kind of deal into some kind of more traditional black lore, that could have been worked into this movie. I mean, it could have been that this guy that was the priest's son, that was the great guitar player, maybe had made a deal and the vampires were sent because of that. There's so many things you could have done, and they did absolutely none of them. It literally was, hey, I need to go outside to go pee so I can get bit by vampires that showed up for no reason. And
one of the things that kind of made me go, really, was when Mary got turned and then she left and she just ran out on foot.
Yeah.
I was like, what? That's really, she just runs away? She's not fast. Just running at regular speed. It made me think of the way vampires were like in the Lost Boys. Like, she should have just blown out the ceiling and floated away or something. I mean, we saw that these vampires can fly.
Yeah. I think by that point I was just starting to sort of watch my watch and be like, how much longer do we have here? And like I said, I wouldn't have had that sort of level of disappointment if I hadn't got to it felt like it was going to be a good movie, and then it's just like somebody came in and directed the second part of it different completely from the first one or something. And I don't know. But just tying those guys back at the end, if they were just tied to the reason that it all happened, could have tied all that together. But it just had to be that these are white supremacists and we're going to kill them because they're bad. It's like, yeah, they are. They're bad. But what does that have to do with the previous 2 hours that we sat through? It's like, I
would have liked to have seen if they wanted a non-vampire kill a bunch of people scene. I would have liked to have seen the landlord contact the guys up in Chicago. Hey, I think I got a couple of guys down here. It's yours.
Yeah, that
sort of thing. That would have tied in with the fact that they stole
the guy that stole the money.
Yeah.
And then you could have had a shootout instead of just that. But lost opportunity.
I do think overall, I enjoyed the film for what it was, but I think overall there were a lot of really just hanging plot points that came out of nowhere. Yeah. And I think what you said about things happened so that they could happen.
Yeah.
There's Trey Parker, one of the writers of South Park.
Yeah.
He did this writing course or talk or something where he says that when you're writing a story, you have to say this happens, therefore this happens, not this happens and then this happens.
Yeah.
And I think that this movie is very much this happens and then this happens.
I mean, it literally is like they got to if they're storyboarding, how did the vampires get in? Well, why don't we just have the guy that's guarding the door go outside and they'll bite him?
Oh, the guy went outside to pee, and then someone, the Asian woman, invites them all in because she's afraid for her child.
Yeah.
That was kind of weak.
Yeah, no, it was
weak.
awful.
That was pretty weak.
If there's vampires outside of the place and they're just like, all I have to do is make it till dawn and then we're fine, I'm like, give me a bottle. I'm just going to go pee in that, or I'm just going to go pee in the corner.
Yeah.
I don't have to walk 300 feet from the property to find the tree. I mean, come on, man.
I was pretty one of the things that disappointed me in when the first vampires thing started happening is the number of people got killed right away. I thought it was going to be more of like pick them off one by one, but like right away, like everybody was leaving. They were like, get out, because Stat got killed. Everybody get out, and everybody leaves, and then you got like what 50 people or something like that become vampires all of a sudden. Yeah, they could have drawn that out quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I think you're talking about the unevenness of the film. That would have required a longer second act.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you could have cut down a lot of the front stuff where they were just character building and stuff. You could have got there in half the time with this is my former love interest that's going to be a cook, and this is the story of the guitar player, and you could have trimmed that down if you wanted to develop more in the second, and maybe that's part of it is they were trying to sort of stay within a time frame, and they spent so long on the first part that they're like, well, let's just speed through this last part, and let's.
I'd like to know. Let's see, who because he did a thing called Anthem. If he just wrote that, because he was the sole writer on.
Is this the Coogler guy?
Yeah, Ryan Coogler. He was the sole writer on Sinners. So maybe some directors you kind of need somebody else.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's one of them. He needs somebody else.
Yeah.
If he writes it by himself. So maybe that's a reason why like Creed didn't really have the pacing issues, because he had two other guys that was writing it with him.
There has to be a point in the writing process where you show this screenplay to somebody and somebody has to like question
why is this?
Why did this happen? Mm-hmm. Can't you make a reason for this?
Well, maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, like George Lucas, for at least definitely in the prequels, suffered from nobody questioned anything. Yeah. Like he really suffered from that. I think he wrote it, and everybody was just like, "It's wonderful, George. It's wonderful."
Yeah.
So that could have been the situation. No one felt like they could say anything.
Yeah.
But that's just speculation.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of what he does. I'll watch.
I like the
I'll
Creed
watch
movies.
I'll watch his next film.
I don't write anybody off for something, but if you bring me another story like that, then I'm like, yeah, no, we're done. I'm not here to watch you sow hate and division.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about the Creed stories. Within that world, there wasn't any. I don't remember there being any racial issues in those movies. I mean, he's working with an old Sylvester Stallone and learning from him, and he's like the father figure, and it's like, well, there's a novel idea that a white guy and a black guy can have a good relationship and learn from each other, and there's a place to go that we ought to go more often, and then you come back with this kind of stuff. And
well, it was very popular. I wouldn't be surprised to see a sequel.
What, the Sinners?
Yeah. They would have to tell. It would have to be Sammy from before he got old, of course. Yeah. But there's plenty of time for them to tell some story.
I think at this point it's like we were talking the other day about going to go see some movies, and I know my daughter and her boyfriend were looking. It's like we were going to go see a movie, and we looked, and there was nothing to go see. It's like we just looked at what was there, and we're like, we just decided to just go eat because there was. I think if it has any popularity, maybe people enjoyed watching a bunch of people get murdered. I don't know, but to me it seems like it's maybe just sort of hitting in a spot where there's absolutely no competition at all. And
well, that's why I got rid of my Regal Unlimited thing, because I wasn't using it, because not enough movies come to theaters.
This is the best thing that's happened in this first quarter of the year, honestly.
Yeah.
Then this is a horrible quarter. I mean, I wouldn't recommend this movie to somebody. There were some good elements to it, but good elements to a movie that ends the way that ended to me.
I would tell someone if you liked Bordello of Blood, if you liked From Dusk Till Dawn.
I don't think it's even in a remote category till Dusk Till Dawn. It's just a.
Did you ever see Demon Knight?
I don't know.
I'm just saying it's in that genre. That's all I'm saying.
Demon Knight.
Yeah.
I don't.
It came out right before, like the year before From Dusk Till Dawn.
No, I don't.
Similar.
I don't think I saw that.
It was a Tales from the Crypt film.
Gosh, maybe I did see that. I don't know. That's been a while.
Yeah.
That almost rings a bell with me, but it's not coming back into my mind. But we need to watch Crossroads sometimes.
Yeah,
I hold that as like great fight scenes from a movie, and I throw that into there. You get like Neo fighting Agent Smith in the subway in the Matrix and all these kind of epic battles. Steve Vai, who used to be the guitarist for David Lee Roth after he split from Van Halen, is the Devil's guitar player.
okay.
And Ralph Macchio, Ry Cooder is a real bluesman, did all the music for this. They have a guitar battle at the end that maybe it's a ludicrous idea, but I love it. You can if you just go to YouTube and look up Crossroads guitar battle, Ralph Macchio or whatever, you can find like that 10 or 12 minute video. And it's just them going back and forth with the guitar, and it's I love it. It's classic. But I really don't suggest just watching that scene. It's so much better if you follow the movie from the start up through there, because the old guy Willie Brown is like in a nursing home in New York, and Ralph Macchio breaks him out, and it becomes like a road trip movie where he's trying to get him back to Mississippi, trying to find out where the Crossroads is and how to get back there. And
I like the premise.
Learns how to play. He's a classical music student that is interested in blues, and so he kind of plays what he can hear from records and stuff. And Willie Brown, the old guy, kind of educates him and kind of teaches him what the blues is about, and he becomes a really good blues guitarist. He's already a classically trained guitarist as it goes, and then just that whole. I thought it was a great movie, and it's a movie that just so many people are like, if you bring it up, they're like, what? I was like, you haven't seen the Karate Kid movie where he fights the devil's guitar?
The devil's guitar.
They're like, what are you talking about? It's like,
well, one more note of information that I found out when I was just reading about Sinners. The guy who played Sammy, Miles Caton, C-A-T-O-N, Catton, probably Catton.
the guitar player?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One, this is his first movie. Two, he learned the blues guitar in 5 months for the role.
Oh, he was great.
I thought that was impressive.
Cut the vampire crap out of the whole thing and just have this a movie. Let this movie go from them just up through him opening at the bar and keep it.
Yeah, that would have been great too.
I was into the world that they were creating with the character building and stuff up until that point.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know where the plot would have taken you with the guitar guy, but there could have been. You could, if you were writing that on purpose, you could have gone somewhere with that. And,
I mean, that his dad, who was a preacher, and it could have been about temptation,
or just the gangsters coming back,
or the gangsters coming back. Yeah, that could have been. Yeah, what could have?
Could have been the thing of Sammy could have.
I'd like to know which came first.
Yeah.
Did the desire to make a vampire film come first, and then figure out the smoke and stack, and you figure all that out, or did that come first? And they're like, well, we need to do something at the end here.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, that's our thoughts on Sinners.
That'll be one of my last thoughts on Sinners. 'Cause, we'll never see that one again, and I don't recommend it. But I guess each his own. It's a shame. Michael B. Jordan's one of my favorite actors of that age. He's been great in most everything I've seen. And
well, I don't think he's going to be missing out on work because of this.
No.
He definitely not. He's gonna it's pretty much doing gangbusters.
Yeah.
So this will definitely help him become an even bigger star than he already is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, he's great at what he does.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for.
Didn't care for the commentary.
Nope.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, well, that's it for our coffee service. And that's it for this episode of Appalachian Dim Sum. Oh, yeah.
We need the cookie.
We need a cookie.
We got to do our one for next time.
Yeah. Here, I'll pick it.
I think I picked last time.
Yeah, I'll pick it. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Now, I guess what we're going to do is, depending on what it is, we'll have to decide the other, if this is the main course or if this is coffee service.
Yeah.
So we got, where is it? Nothing.
Did we get a cookie with no fortune?
I got it. It's going to be, aha, this was mine, Blade Runner.
Well, there you go.
So there we go. We're going to talk about Blade Runner next time.
That's well timed.
Yeah, that'll be our main course, and we'll figure out what the dessert service will be based on that.
Okay.
We'll think about that. Well, thanks for joining. Thanks, Joel. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll get this broken down into 4 pieces and
4 pieces.
Get them out a little bit more frequently that way.
Yeah.
And not as long as some of our first attempts.
Collectively, will be though.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us for episode 4 of Appalachian Dim Sum. And that's it. We're out.
All right. We'll see you.